Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer of some 35 years experience out of Massachusetts, New Bedford, Massachusetts. We also have a store called Crystal Expectations, which has been open for, my gosh, about close to 38 years now. And so the store is open. You can call me either for readings or lessons or for inquiries about the store at 508 525 0001. Again, you can text me at that message as well, 508 525 0001. And my email is garygomesg@gmail.com. That's my name all run together with a G at the end at gmail.com. At this particular juncture, I would like to encourage you to uh, subscribe to the channel. I'm holding the microphone like this because this particular lavalier mic doesn't work that well on this particular shirt. So it's just it's more direct. You'll hear more of my mellifluous voice. Um, mellifluous voice. I didn't like the way the transcription came out. Sorry. Um, and so I'm going to do a very simple chart today because a lot of what's been happening over the past week can actually be seen from just looking at that chart. And we can also predict what's happening just by looking at that chart. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the chart. Also, I would like to take this moment to encourage you to subscribe, like, share the channel with others, because it could contain some information which is very useful to them. So I'll probably do a couple of country charts, but not a lot. Um, so so essentially, we had um, a lot of activity this week, and, and you can actually see that from this cluster of planets in the eighth house. So the chart we have right here is a Gemini rising, as you can see from the letters. Um, and we have Mars, Sun, Mercury, and Venus in the eighth house. Saturn's in the 10th house. So a lot of people are depressed about what's been happening over the past week. And Rahu is in the ninth. So essentially, this past week does represent uh, a deliberate effort to shake up the existing order. Now, this applies not only to things like the World Economic Forum, which happened this past week, but also to things like uh, what's been happening in Minneapolis, where there was another shooting victim last night. Um, so again, the purpose of this is not to take positions with uh, with, with the victim or uh, with ICE. It's it's not really. We're doing an astrological analysis here. We're not doing um, a critique of good and evil. Okay, so so that's important for me to distinguish because even though I can look at certain actions and say, God, it's horrible that happened, I can't really, I really don't think you can analyze intent from a chart. And the main reason I say that is because these are all actions. They're sort of, now again, keep something in mind. We still have that Mars Mercury conjunction. is still very powerful, and Mars is right behind Venus, so that would kind of destroy the peacekeeping, any kind of peacekeeping effort. But we do have a lot of politicians essentially um, lying about what's happening. And like I said, as I said before, this goes for both sides. So again, I'm not trying to take sides in this particular um, debate. But whenever something like this happens, especially if it's in a state which is violently opposed to a federal action, you're going to see here um, people say the shooting wasn't justified. And you're also going to hear the government double back and say, yes, it was. Okay, so I think that's one of the things we're going to have to wait for this particular cluster to clear up before we can determine really who was to blame. I don't like seeing anybody get killed. That's not the idea. But there are there are always some form of extenuating circumstances when somebody gets shot. And I think, and people's minds out there are already made up as to who they think is to blame. So as a, so so in some ways it becomes futile for me to take a side in this. So right now we have Saturn in the 10th house. So that's kind of a disappointing combination. Now, over the past week, one of the things I did want to point out is over the past week, we had moon going over we had a new moon in this entire cluster of planets. Now that does represent a new um, activity in international affairs because it's in the sign connected with Capricorn. It's in the sign of Capricorn connected with business. And as you probably heard, there has been a threat made of increasing tariffs to both Europe and also to Canada. Canada is looking at a 100% tariff increase if they go through with their deal with China. So this is ramping up into serious action. Do I think anything violent will take place from that? Oh, and also the Greenland dispute. So, but it was interesting because Carney made an address, uh, the Prime Minister of Canada made an address in which he actually indicated that the rules of international order were not being followed. And I think, but one of the interesting things of it was one of the unstated um, assumption was that Canada and most of the EU ignored the rules of international order when it was benefiting them. Now that it's being used against them, they're saying, "Whoa, this violates the rules of international order." So this is a very tough um, planetary combination, and we're going to be in it for a few months. So just buckle up. And but there have been um, just in general when Trump spoke before the before the World Economic Forum, he did indicate that there would be a change in the relationship. Okay. A lot of other countries did as well. Does that mean that that the countries um, will be split? last week I did an analysis of the NATO chart, and it looked like NATO was in for a rough patch over the next couple of years, but it didn't look like it was going to dissolve. Um, the other thing is, apparently Trump said he is pretty much getting what he wants from his Greenland efforts. So that could mean, so we'll know the full extent of that when it actually occurs. Uh, but but basically, there doesn't seem to be any real need to invade Greenland or take it over at the current time. But Trump is a mercurial person, so he changes his mind a lot. So that that's still up for consideration. Um, but I I'm not particularly concerned about that um, because it did point to some, and the European leaders did point to some weaknesses that they had in terms of their country, and also this Venus, Mercury, Mars, Sun combination is really a strategic combination to vie for economic ascendancy. You notice I'm not including Pluto in this particular equation, even though I have it on the chart, because I don't think it really means that this will be um, an epic changing um, meeting. And the reason I say that is because Pluto has been in a lot of other places over the years, and I haven't seen it really change much of anything. Um, Saturn is in the fourth house. So if we compare the U.S. chart to this, let's just look at the U.S. chart quickly. And I did have Denmark's chart here, so let me look at that. Hold on a second. Let me look at Denmark. Okay, so Denmark has one, two. So Saturn's in Denmark sign, so it looks like Denmark will have some kind of permanent loss over the next couple of years. Now, again, I don't necessarily think that that means that the United States is going to invade uh, Greenland. Okay, so that's going to be a big difference from what I'm seeing than from what maybe some other astrologers are seeing. Um, the other thing is, uh, I've been through I've been through one of these um, events in which Europe has been outraged before, and that was during the Reagan years, in which they were accusing Reagan of engaging in nuclear brinksmanship with the former Soviet Union, and ultimately um, they underestimated that Reagan's strategy could be successful in bringing down the USSR. And and let's face it, the ultimate decline of the USSR was mainly because they couldn't provide enough for their citizens and continue in an economic race with the West, an economic arms race with the West. So those people who forget, so again, it is risk. It is risky to upset the apple cart, but unless a person engages in some form of risk, there will never be any progress or any change made. So I think that the people who are afraid of that have to look and say, well, if you hadn't risked um, buying a house, let's say, and taking out a mortgage, you wouldn't have your home right now. If you hadn't risked asking that woman to marry you, you wouldn't have those children in front of you. No, not every risk turns out positively, but given the fact that Jupiter is in Gemini's sign and is in Gemini and is aspecting the U.S.'s first house, this risk, temporarily at least, looks good for the U.S. over the next couple of years because Jupiter will be going into Cancer, then into Leo, and I think you'll start to see a change in world politics. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the government leaders that we're listening to from Europe and Canada really aren't very popular in their own home countries. There are certain exceptions, but those tend to be the more conservative leaders. So Keir Starmer is not very popular in the UK. Carney's not very popular in Canada. Macron is not very popular in France. And you can also say, well, Trump's not very popular in the United States, which is true, but his approval ratings are like three times what uh, what those other leaders are. So he's technically underwater, but he makes if a leader has a 16 or 17% approval rating, like Stromer does in England in the UK, then 42% would start to look very good. So I think these are the things that you don't hear about uh, when you're watching the news. The other thing is, and again, there are allegations of uh, corruption in the governments of both Minnesota and Maine right now, uh, connected with the Somali population. So I I'm not sure how much of what's going on in. I'm not justifying the death of anybody, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure how much these um, protests because of this Mercury-Mars combination are really designed to hide other things going on there because this is in the eighth house of the chart. On the other hand, we don't know what Trump's motives are or long-term motives are for Venezuela, Greenland, so there's enough mystery to be absorbed by both sides. Okay, so this isn't. So I'm just being honest with you. This is not. Uh, this isn't um, a justification for any kind of a shooting, and this isn't a justification for any kind a of an expansion. Uh, but again, we have to keep a certain amount of historical perspective in mind. And if it's uncomfortable for people to do that, it's uncomfortable for people to do that. I'm not necessarily saying they should they should just shut up and accept it, but I'm saying they should be aware that similar events have happened previously. Um, so a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now as being it's never been done before. Well, that's not true. And I, I think if you go far enough back in history, you'll see different points in the U.S.'s history in which it definitely broke the rules. It's definitely been breaking the rules for the past 60 years in terms of regime change. And Europe has been essentially going along with it. Uh, and Europe is now, because of their particular situation, they're saying, well, we're not going to stand for this. And I understand that. I get it. But uh, there is an imbalance in the world in terms of the responsibility of the United States. There will be resistance if people have crossed over illegally to being sent back to a country they tried to escape from. Okay, these are important things to understand when you're looking at charts. So let's look at the U.S. chart just really quickly. Okay, I want to get out of that particular chart. Sorry, folks. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna stay in that chart. And let's flip it. U.S. chart. And I'll talk about the eclipse next week. United States, U.S. And it won't be until the end of February, so we have plenty of time. Let me see. United States. All right, there we go. All right. So like I said, I am going to make this much shorter than normal. So we'll flip to the United States chart. States has a Sagittarius rising chart. It has what's called a Sri Lagna in the first house, so that actually indicates the country would be relatively well off for most of its time. Now, again, the United States has had economic downturns, and we are hitting, I would say, a rather critical subperiod between between March 27th um, and April 18th in particular, but this will actually extend all the way until April 14th of 2027. So K2 is in the second house of the United States. So K2 essentially does indicate some form of domestic disruption in the chart or some kind of reform. And so we're really looking at March, and Rahu is in the same placement as the United States moon, or it's moving towards uh, the moon in the chart, and is also moving towards K2. So this could mean a flip over, a change in government within about a year and a half. Okay, but whether or not that change means you'll have a different form of government, or you'll have a different leader, that's open to question. The or whether or not you'll have new limitations voted in on the president, or an attempt to remove, which is quite possible after before April 14th of 2027. You know, all those things are possibilities from that K2 subperiod. Um, the other thing is we have Jupiter is in the seventh house, so we'll be dealing more with our allies or our partners over the next few months or so, and also going a bit behind the scenes over the next 2 years or so. So I think, and Saturn's aspecting natal Saturn, which does indicate a change to government. Now that doesn't necessarily mean either a dictatorship or a revolutionary of the proletariat. Okay, those are extreme examples of change. The United States chart is, despite the fact that it's what I would call a dynamic chart, its moon is fixed. The basic principles under which it was founded are, I would say, essentially secure. It's a sign which is built around um, deposition of eliminating old rulers. It's built around not acceding to a dictatorship. It's built around changing things or shaking up the world. Okay, so that's how I would read the moon in Aquarius, and that's what it wants to do. Okay, so I think over the next few years, I am expecting more. How now violence between March 27th and April 18th. I've said this before. Maybe some conciliation between April 18th and June 23rd. And, excuse me, and June 23rd to July 12th. Um, Maybe a new direction in administration, July 12th through August 14th. The moon subperiod, a lot of innovation, a lot of change, August 14th to September 6th. Possibly some military action, but maybe a bit of an economic downturn. That's more likely during a Mars subperiod. And September 6th to November 13th. This is a more likely period for enemy action on the part of the United States. December through February, more of a control of power time, and February 19th to April 14th, um, more media coverage, more what I would call a grandiose media coverage. So this will be an interesting year to live through. I want to look at just one other country because I know I have a lot of Indian uh, viewers. Oops, it helps if I spelled it correctly, huh? Uh, all right, so as I said before, a major disruption in the Indian government between February 4th and I would say July 25th. Um, but also India will get more aggressive. Let's look at Iran. Iran's been in really rough shape over the past few months. Let me see if I have it. I do. Iran is in a Jupiter subperiod, which doesn't sound so bad. Jupiter's in its ninth house. Venus, however, is in the fourth house, which could indicate overthrow of government. And that would probably happen between July, because we have a debilitated Mercury in this chart, between around July 7th, maybe earlier because of the Saturn subperiod, but July 7th for sure. And let's see now. I want to look at one more country. I want to look at the UK. Okay. Not sure we have it. Okay. This is the active union chart. So we'll use that one. So this is a kind of it's in a Rahu Venus Jupiter subperiod again. This doesn't look right. So, but at least from the chart, If we're looking at the leadership of the chart, we have K2 passing through. Um, we have Saturn aspecting the ninth house, which can make it difficult for leaders. Jupiter's in goes to Venus, gains, and Jupiter is alliances. This chart doesn't look right to me, but um, let me, let me look at the other chart, which was, well, let's work with this chart just for the sake of argument. Um, the thing of it is benevolent subpriests don't necessarily always bring prosperity. And Venus is a good planet for this particular rising sign, for Virgo rising, but Jupiter is not. So what that means in plain English uh, is essentially the government is going through a time of crisis right now. And I would say before August 29th, you may see a change in government in the UK. Maybe, may see a change. It could last until next year. Okay. Let's go back to the main chart. Okay, I didn't look at Germany's or France's chart, but I've already looked at those charts before, and I think they're in trouble, if I'm honest. So let's go over here and get out of this, and we'll swap it. But okay. But there was a more recent UK chart that I used, and I looked a little bit different from that. But that really isn't a good chart, if I'm truthful. K2 is well placed in Virgo. Rahu is somewhat well placed in Pisces. Um, but that was an 1801 chart, so that could represent England's overexpansion during its colonial its empire days. So let's look at this chart and let's look at Aries for this month. Aries is the ruler of the first house over here. That's April 15th to May 15th. For those of you who don't know how a sidereal zodiac works, and Indians by and large favor a sidereal zodiac. So this indicates a lot of focus on the home, a lot of focus on um, trying to convince people to allow you to get what you want, a lot of work activity, just a ton of work activity. Rahu's in the 11th house, a lot of problems with children, also still indicated, and Rahu in the um, in the 11th house, some financial gain. Rahu and Ketu are also what's called stationary direct right now. So any change we're seeing will become rather permanent. Uh, any change initiated this week will become rather permanent. Okay, so one of my students had asked me to explain how I see permanent changes. When Rahu and Ketu turn stationary direct, I usually use that as a marker of something happened which will permanently change the situation. Now it depends on how strong Rahu and Ketu are, but in this particular situation, Rahu and Ketu are almost exactly at the middle of the sign, so that would indicate a really strong change. Um, Even though it's a transit chart. If the dashas agree with it, or if they're involved with the lords of the Mahadashas, that will tend to underscore it just a little bit more. Okay, so let's say let's go back to swap it for the UK chart. So So we're in a Jupiter subperiod. So Mars aspects Jupiter, and we have a series of planets all in um, the fifth house of luck for the UK. So Jupiter's not involved with any of the transits, but we do have a lot of planets aspecting Jupiter. Okay, so this would indicate what I would call more or less permanent changes happening in the UK by August of this year. Okay. And like I said, if given the fact that the UK has, um, geez, I was just trying to think. The UK has many, many problems it's facing right now. And so does the United States, if I'm honest, you know. So a lot of the changes that are happening in the US are connected with foreign policy issues and also with people visiting the United States from other countries. So if we're looking at immigration, we're looking at people entering the country. So that would be a ninth house issue or a 12th house issue. And if we go to the US chart, let's go to the US chart for just a second. Oh, sorry. United States chart. United States chart. I want it. 1 second. United States. Sorry, folks. Okay, so let's go. So we have the United States chart up on the screen. And so we're in a Rahu Mahadasha. Rahu is stationary direct over the moon. It will deal how it will affect how the United States will deal permanently with other members of its alliances. Now that could be positive or negative. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but it does indicate what I would call a more or less permanent change. Well, let's go to the new chart, the now chart again. That's why I like the true nodes over the mean nodes because the nodes are really, at least to my way of thinking, the nodes are the most powerful thing in a chart. They're nothing really beats them. They only temporarily escape from them, and they can flip the direction, and they'll usually have an effect for about 19 years. So I think we're seeing kind of a critical month up ahead, to be honest with you. So, so at least from this chart. So let's get back to Aries. So a lot of focus on children, um, Jupiter in the third house, focus on expansion of friends and contacts, focus on career, focus on expenses still. So expenses are still a problem um, for this particular sign. And Rahu will give financial gains, but they won't be essentially very long-lasting financial gains. For Taurus, Taurus goes May 15th to June 15th, and um, my left hand is falling asleep, so that's why I'm changing changing my microphone status. Taurus has Jupiter in the second house, Moon in the 12th house. For those of you who don't know astrology, this is what's called a Shubha Yoga. It's essentially a good combination. Moon is strong. It's a benefic planet when it's strong. Jupiter's a benefic planet by nature. So Taurus is protected from spending too much through prudence, and also it will gain some money this month. K2 is in the fourth house. There will be a lot of reconstruction of property or maybe even redesign. The only negative, there's not really a negative I see here. We do have a cluster of planets. Whenever a cluster of planets comes together, and this is another sign of imminent change. Whenever planets cluster or they pile up into a heap, that indicates a major shift in things. So I think because of this cluster in Capricorn, it will change the way the Taurus does business. Okay. Um, but again, it will affect those areas of the chart affected by this particular cluster. So this will give good financial gain to this chart, good good luck with property, good luck with a command, and to a certain extent, good luck with money. Rahu is in the 10th house. This um, sign will feel like it's not making a lot of forward progress, but it really is. And Saturn's in the 11th house, so gains, at least initially, will be slight, but they will be permanent. For Gemini, so let's go to Gemini, that's June 15th through July 15th. Jupiter sits in the first house. That's considered very good, even though it's not really a friendly planet for Gemini. That's considered very good. It will increase work and work opportunities and also relationship opportunities. Mars, I'm sorry, the moon sits in the 11th house, so that's a Dana Yoga or a wealth producing combination. So it should be a good week for money for this particular sign. K2's in the third house. Strong desire or ambition to move forward with desires, but just on the negative side, there can be a little bit of recklessness with this particular combination. But again, it does give a certain amount of bravery, which is good. Fifth house Lord is Venus. Venus is placed in this cluster of planets, so this gives children or creative activities problems um, with differentiating themselves from their friends or their comrades. Rahu is in the ninth house. Uh, if Rahu is in the ninth house, it indicates um, being susceptible to false leaders or people who really don't have your best interests at heart. Saturn is in the 10th house, good for career growth if you focus your energy on career. And Moon is in the 11th house, so that indicates good financial luck for this particular sign. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. Cancer has the moon in the 10th house, so there'll be a lot of focus on career life for this particular planet. Good impulse to save money. K2's in the second house. Probably a lot of family disputes, at least from this chart, and especially over career matters. And let's see, over here we have a cluster of planets in the seventh house. Not a good time for new relationships or new strategic alliances. Okay, but it is a good time for checking out or investigating these folks. Rahu's in the eighth house. There can be some people who are aligned to try to subvert you or spread falsehoods about you. Saturn's in the ninth house. This is essentially a really good placement for slow, determined career progress. Um, let's see now. For Leo, Leo still has that K2 in this chart, which will be there for the next 9 months or so. And essentially, K2 in the middle of Leo does give an indication that it's in Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So you'll see rich people under attack. Okay, so you're seeing a lot of tax initiatives in various states designed to take money away from more wealthy individuals. That's what the K2 is doing. And Rahu is in Aquarius, so this will give some new social innovations as a result of that activity. Um, Mercury is the second lord. So this is Leo's between August 15th and September 15th. Sorry if I didn't say that. Second lord is in the sixth house. A lot of effort, though, a lot of legal problems in terms of what you're trying to do, at least for another couple of months. And let's see now, Mars is in its exalted sign for this chart. So essentially, if you put your mind to it, this sign can get whatever it wants, but there will be legal pushback. Rahu's in the seventh house. This is not a bad placement. It gives some interesting alliances, some alliances with innovators or new developers. Saturn's in the eighth house can give some resistance from people who are poor or um, unhappy with their lives. Moon is in the ninth house. Moon is Lord of the 12th house. So luck will continue, but the luck will be confined to foreign countries, not necessarily uh, your own area or to people that you know. Jupiter's in the 11th house, good for financial gains. For Virgo, this is September 15th to October 15th. K2's in the 12th house, so there's a lot of focus on spiritual activity, but also giving things up, also just trying to rein in spending and also rein in financial overexpansion. Venus is the Lord of the second house and the fifth house. This is a big Raj Yoga. All these planets, except for the Sun, are relatively good for Virgo rising. Mars isn't particularly good, but it can bring some unexpected gains. But Venus and Mercury in conjunction in the sign are excellent for financial success. So Rahu is in the seventh house. Good time for new business partnerships. I'm sorry, it's in the sixth house. Um, some legal issues, some restraints on what you can do. Though they'll probably still be present until the end of the year, but you will be able to make some progress now that Rahu is direct. Saturn is in the seventh house. Again, some obstruction with money flows. Yeah, some obstruction from spouse. Moon is in the eighth house. Unexpected windfalls or gains uh, from financial friends. Jupiter's in the 10th house. Good opportunity for teaching or advising people. For Libra, this goes between October 15th to November 15th. We have um, Gati Lagna is in the first house of Gati. I don't talk about these Lagnas very much, but Gati Lagna is a Lagna for fame. So this sign can actually accrue a certain amount of reputational increase this month and this week. We have a cluster of both Dana Yoga and um, so wealth producing planets and luck producing planets in the fifth house. So essentially, even though there will be fights or arguments over luck, this actually looks like it's going to be a relatively lucky month for this sign. Um, and Rahu's in the fifth house, so a lot of interest in innovative ideas, new technologies, new activities. They can um, change the world or change at least your immediate circumstances. Saturn's in the sixth, so this sign will have to work awfully hard. As a matter of fact, there can even be some heart or stomach problems for the sign if it's not careful. Moon is in the seventh house. Relationship partners will be moody or changeable. Ninth house has Jupiter in it. This is a good transit, even for Libra rising, for which Jupiter is not really a good planet, because Jupiter always brings luck when it aspects. So it's aspecting the first house and the fifth house. So there should be some financial gains for this sign. So overall, not a bad week for Libra. Um, Maybe a lot of interest in love affairs, but not long-term relationships. For Scorpio, Scorpio has starts on November 15th, goes to December 15th, and Scorpio has an exalted Mars in the third house, and the house of desires is packed in there for this sign. So this is friendship, tool making, ability to influence people, ability to convince people. Um, the Mercury, Mars, Venus combination, good for new partners, good for financial luck. So again, not a bad month for a Scorpio or a week for a Scorpio, if I'm honest. Rahu is in the fourth house. It will give some disruption in home life. Saturn's in the fifth. A lot of effort spent on desires, but a lot of desires coming true. Moon is in the sixth house. It's heading towards this exaltation sign in Taurus over here. And Moon is actually fairly well placed in the sign. It's in um, Ashvini Nakshatra, so this is a good time to heal and to rest. And we have seventh house, Lord Venus. Relationship partners will be very, very busy or very, very overambitious. Some possible sudden expected gains or financial gains that have been delayed. And K2's in the 10th house. Again, not a lot of career recognition, but overall, not a bad placement for career success. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius is the ninth sign of the zodiac. It's located uh, in the Vedic calendar, in the Vedic chart from December 15th through January 15th. And its Lord is Jupiter. Jupiter's in the seventh house. This gives luck to this particular sign, as I explained with the United States of America chart. And Sun, Mars, Venus and Mercury are all placed in the second house. So again, this can give some unexpected luck because Mars is exalted and it rules the fifth house. Unexpected career gains. Mercury and Venus. Venus is not a particularly good planet for this sign, so there can be some people trying to take your money away or trying to steal from you or defraud you, so you have to be careful about that. And Mercury is actually not a bad planet for this rising sign because it rules the seventh house of partnerships and the 10th house of careers. So good luck for career life or financial gain through career. But again, I have to warn you, whenever planets cluster together, it's always this, what I would call a kind of battle royal for who, who wins. The sun is by far the strongest planet in this chart, but the planet which is winning planetary war is Venus. So not quite as good a month for, I'm sorry, it's not Venus, it's Mercury. So not quite as good a month for um, for this sign, as I initially said, but there should be some good gains of income through career life and also through friends. For Rahu, Rahu has is in the third house in this chart. So again, whatever this sign puts his mind to, it should be able to get. Saturn's in the fourth house. Some difficulties at home. Moon is in the fifth. That's a good placement. Um, but it rules the eighth house, so there can be some unexpected surprises or unexpected problems from a relationship partner. But again, overall, it's lucky. Jupiter is in the seventh house. We already said this is a good placement for this chart. Ketu's in the ninth house. That can give unexpected problems with the government, but again, this won't really be that detrimental. And finally, we're back to Libra being in the second house, so good for financial gains. For Aquarius, this is Capricorn was January 15th to February 15th. My apologies if I didn't say that. Aquarius is February 15th to March 15th, roughly. There's a day shaved off for Aquarius. But um, this particular chart has Rahu in the first house, K2 in the seventh house, so there can be some problems with relationships and some personal dissatisfaction with the progress you're making, and some extraordinary expenses from almost all parts of life, including children, um, career, uh, unseen forces or unexpected breakdowns, and also connected with real estate. So this particular sign has Saturn in the second house, so money will be a little bit tougher this month than normal. Moon is in the third house. Moon is actually fairly well placed in this chart, but it will give some problems with enemies or people standing in the way of your desires. Jupiter's in the fifth house. This is the saving grace of this particular chart because Jupiter will rescue the chart. Not necessarily at the last minute, but it will give you rewards from efforts you've done in the past. So, so essentially, this isn't such a bad chart. It just does indicate a heavy expenditure pattern continuing for about, I would say, about another couple of months. The So let's move on to Pisces. Pisces has Saturn in the first house. Pisces is between March 15th and April 15th. Saturn's in the first house. Some potential gain to children from money. Saturn in the first house does slow things down and cause expenses for the sign, even though there are financial gains. The Lord of the first house is Jupiter is placed in the fourth, so there'll be a lot of focus on home life and also on financial gains connected with the home. Venus, Sun, Mercury, uh, and Mars are all placed in the 11th house, so this can give actually good financial gains to the person, but they'll have to be juggling a lot of different things in order to do it. Rahu is in the 12th house, still dissatisfied with the output or with the amount of money you have to spend. K2's in the 6th, have to be careful about unusual health problems or even stomach problems, at least from this chart. So this is not necessarily a bad chart. There are some good indications here, but that Saturn in the first house tends to make everything seem like it's much more work than it has to be. So at least from this chart, there are some good signs that Moon in the second and that cluster in the 11th house are actually good. Jupiter in the fourth house is actually good, but some of the other planets aren't quite so great. All right, so that's it for all the signs. Now let's look at the astro mapping chart. All right, so since all the planets are clustered together, we do have a pattern of, so we have Saturn, so we are going to be seeing clusters of activities at various points around the globe. Okay, so just prepare yourself for that. Um, we have this entire cluster of planets, um, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, passing through eastern, far eastern Alaska, and could cause some problems to the government there. Uh, and Saturn passing through this particular sign or this particular part right here, some problems in the Aleutian Islands, and also some economic distress in Hawaii. Moon is passing through the Aleutian Islands as well, or through parts of Alaska. So we'll probably see Alaska more in the news than normal. There is a Moon Jupiter line right in the middle of, or just on the border of the United States or Canada. So you'll probably see a lot of publishing coming out of there. Um, I'm just joking. I don't think it'll have a lot of impact. Um, Mars, Sun, Mercury, and Venus are passing over Western Canada, Vancouver, um, Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada. So I'm expecting to see some kind of financial scandals coming out of that area. I've already heard about some, and that is that Governor Newsom wants to tax trillion billionaires who are leaving the state. And also, there are some problems with the books in California. Vancouver, I'm not aware of any problems, to be honest. California is really, and it's sort of like in Nevada to a certain extent, and Oregon and Washington State. Excuse me. We have no bands appearing except for a Rahu band appearing over um, Minnesota, Wisconsin, um, down into Louisiana, and down to southern Mexico, bordering on El Salvador. Now, a Rahu line can indicate some kind of political scandal or some kind of governmental scandal, and it's interesting to me that it's hovering right over um, Minnesota or Minnesota, uh, Wisconsin, and down into looks like it's touching on Illinois, and but it's also touching on um, oh gosh, I should know that state, Arkansas, and um, down through Louisiana. So again, there can be some governmental scandals occurring here. Um, the other thing is Canada. Yeah, the Alberta vote is moving much closer. It looks like it's a strong possibility that they will vote on secession. Things could change a lot between now and when the actual vote occurs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But this is close to Alberta. And there was another district that was seriously considering seceding from Canada. There is a Saturn line running through and a Jupiter line running through New York City and also through uh, roughly where Montreal is, Vermont, Western Massachusetts, yeah, Western Massachusetts, and hitting Haiti and going down to Venezuela. So, eh, all the way down to Peru, Chile, and touching slightly on Argentina, but it's not a very populated area of Argentina. So this can mean some economic hardship for these areas, um, and some limitation. Mondani is, as we know, he's the mayor of New York City, and so this could represent his activities taking place there. And there's also a Jupiter line running through there. So again, it's that promise for uh, a new future that um, he's talking about. We have Mars, Sun, Mercury, and Venus all hitting uh, eastern Canada, and touching on Brazil. And there's a moon and a Jupiter line going through Brazil, and it's focusing right around here. So I think we're going to see some revisiting of justice or lawsuits in Brazil. Um, I'm not particularly optimistic there'll be any kind of a change in any of the sentences down there because basically it's not really um, just trying to think of the right way to put it. The decisions in the Supreme Court are made by one man in, in Brazil. So, but again, there will be a lot more public attention paid to that. And there is a Mars line going off the tip of Brazil, so there may be some violence in Brazil. I hope not. Um, there's a Rahu line going through Iceland, Portugal, Morocco, I believe it is, and all the way down to the Ivory Coast in Africa. So we can expect to see some government scandals all the way over here because all these countries are placed. So this will also affect Libya, Nigeria, um, Niger, Chad, just a bunch of countries in Africa. Also Norway, Denmark, Germany, France, and to a certain extent Italy as well, and also Sweden, if I'm quite honest. So I would watch out for this general part of the world in terms of financial problems or even political scandals. For there's a Jupiter line running through um, Ukraine, down through Turkey, excuse me, didn't mean to do that. And also down to West Africa, down through all of West Africa, Mozambique, and slightly touching South Africa. So South Africa may have some financial problems. Um, Zambia may have some financial problems this month. And let's see now. The Jupiter line running through Turkey is actually favorable. So is the line running through Saudi Arabia. The thing that's adversely affecting the other countries is not really the fact that Jupiter's a bad planet, but the fact that we have a Saturn line over here abutting it, and it'll affect the Jupiter line is running right over Turkey, and it's close to Somalia, but not quite on top of it. Somalia has a moon line running over it, so we're going to hear a lot more news about Somalia and a lot more news about Saudi Arabia. And we have that cluster of lines going through Iran. So Iran looks ready to load. From what I understand, there were something like 20,000 people killed by the Iranian government over the past few weeks. So it's really not good for them right now. And it's also bleeding a little bit into Afghanistan and Pakistan. So this part of the world, I'm not really, um, I'm kind of worried about. Um, So we'll be hearing a lot about that over the next few weeks. The next prominent lines we see are a Rahu line going over eastern India, Tibet, Ladakh, and Bangladesh, and also a Saturn line hitting the economies of China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand and Malaysia, and also Indonesia. So these countries are largely relying on U.S. exports, uh, exports to all countries, but definitely U.S. exports. So this isn't surprising. Um, and China, maybe, this is just speculating, maybe getting a little bit desperate right now for some kind of trade progress. There's a Jupiter line running up through Indonesia, and there's a moon line running through Japan, uh, Guyana, and down into Australia. So Australia is seeing some economic disruptions as well from these planets all sequestered in Capricorn. And New Zealand is open for more political scandals right now. So some of these countries you're not going to see on the national news because our national news doesn't cover them. You'll have to tune into other resources. So let's say you're interested in different stories about different regions of the world. You can look up um, news publications that serve those regions or commentators who talk about those regions. It's not You're not going to get a full coverage from any conventional news system in the United States, just to be honest, because essentially it's just we tend to cover things that only affect the United States, and I'm of the persuasion that the whole world affects the United States, but that's me. I'm in my own little box over here. So in the meantime, stay proud, stay confident, and when I say stay proud, I'm not. It's not a code word for anything. I'm just saying, um, don't be ashamed of anything you are or anything you've done, unless you've taken direct action yourself. It's it, it's something that you have no control over. Okay, so just um, lighten up that load and focus on doing the best you can under the current circumstances under which we're living. I love you all. I want you to um, look for opportunities because although I think the next couple of months are going to be kind of difficult, I still think they present great opportunities for people. And I don't think the world is going to end anytime soon. I think we're actually in relatively good shape despite outer appearances. Obviously, I'd like to see some of the um, killing stop, um, and also I'd like to see some of the demonstrations and killing stop in the United States, but also in Ukraine, also in other parts of the world which are uh, in war-torn sectors. That's my personal dream because we're just wasting a lot of energy arguing about who's right. So that's just my position. You can have your own. I'm not imposing my position on yours. But I'm relatively optimistic that this period is going to produce something better than what we have right now. Okay? So, but optimism is my is my default position. So I can't help that. Okay? So in the meanwhile, take care of yourselves. I love you all. And again, no matter how bleak things seem to be getting, we can always find a way out of this. We can always do something to improve our lives or succeed. Okay? So keep those thoughts in mind, and God bless you all. For those of you who are being hit by the storm that I'm in, good luck. Be careful and take care. Again, I love you all. I know I've said it several times, but I really want to send that out to you this week, just because it's been such a negative week. Okay, but again, a lot of people are being there are conversations that need to be had on all sides. Okay, so that's positive, actually, I think. Okay, all right, folks. Bye. Be careful. Be well. Do good things for yourself and for others. And I'll see you next week. Thanks very much for watching. Again, subscribe, like, share. Any comments you can make about the channel are greatly appreciated. I'll try to cover in a more coherent way what I was asked to cover about whether or not I see changes as being permanent or temporary. Okay, permanent can be a shift. Um, okay, it can be a shift in perception. Temporary can be something that lasts 20 years. Okay, so again, when we're using these terms, I'm not trying to play mental games with you, but when we're using these terms, we need to distinguish between a temporary shift in perspective, which will affect our thinking for years to come, and a situation which is temporary, but which will last for 20 years before it returns to its default position. Okay? So, again, God bless you, and I've said goodbye long enough. And how will you miss me if I never go away? Right? All right. Bye bye, everyone.